Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's analysis, where we are taking a seriously close look at the ultimate biological engine built for pure survival, the wild wolf. You know, when we look at a wolf, we don't just see a furry predator, right? We are looking at the result of millions of years of absolutely unyielding evolutionary engineering. Today, we're going to uncover the incredible, hidden mechanics that allow this animal to completely dominate its environment. So just think about this number for a second. 76 kilometers. A single wolf can cover 76 kilometers in just 12 hours. Imagine the massive, non-stop mechanical stress that puts on a skeleton. Seriously, how does any animal's body endure that kind of continuous, pounding impact without its joints or bones just failing? Well, the answer is buried deep in their evolutionary history.
Section 1. From fins to paws.
You see, moving on land didn't just happen overnight. It was essentially a three-step evolutionary journey. First off, ancient aquatic fins morphed into these basic, horizontal limbs sticking straight out from the sides of the body. Second, we start seeing distinct joint angles, the very beginnings of knees and elbows. And finally, and this is the absolute game changer for the wolf, the entire trunk of the body lifted off the ground. And those limbs shifted into a fully vertical position. That upright stance, that's the secret. It's how they support all that body weight while moving forward with maximum efficiency.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this biological phenomenon called cursorial syndrome. Millions of years ago, as the global climate shifted, dense protective forests opened up into massive sprawling savannas. Suddenly, there was nowhere to hide, right? And this kicked off a brutal evolutionary arms race between predators and prey. To survive out in the open, predators had to develop a really rare combination of skills. The ability to endure an exhausting long-distance pursuit paired perfectly with the explosive power to hit extreme speeds for the final takedown.
Section 2. The secret of the locked forearm.
Okay, imagine trying to sprint at top speed, but you literally can't twist your wrists or your forearms even a fraction of an inch. Sounds kind of limiting, doesn't it? Well, felines, like your house cat or a lynx, they can rotate their forearms up to 128 degrees. That is absolutely perfect for grappling, wrestling, and pulling prey to the ground. But wolves, their lower leg bones are permanently locked in a palms-down position. They literally sacrificed almost all their rotational flexibility in exchange for pure, incredibly stable forward momentum.
And here is where evolution gets really fascinating. It finds the exact same solution across completely different species. Take humans, for example. If our forearm bones naturally fuse together and can't separate, it's actually a rare condition that severely limits how we use our arms. But out in the wild, that exact same fusion convergently evolved as a massive advantage in both wolves and ostriches. It creates this rigid, shock-absorbing block that lets them sprint at incredible speeds, up to 70 kilometers an hour, without the catastrophic risk of just spraying a joint out in the middle of nowhere.
Section 3. The architecture of wolf bones and joints.
Let's move to the actual joints and see how this all builds together. That locked wrist is really just the beginning. Let's break down the mechanics of the wolf's elbow. They have this highly specialized, hook-shaped bone process that snaps perfectly into a deep groove in the elbow. When a wolf plants its foot during a run, that elbow extends almost completely straight, hitting 170 to 180 degrees. These structures lock together just like pieces of a giant puzzle, forming a deep mechanical lock. What does that do? It entirely prevents the joint from twisting or popping out laterally. So when a wolf strikes the ground at full sprint, the joint is structurally locked, driving all that force straight up the leg without collapsing.
And this brilliantly illustrates how natural selection practically uses math. It heavily favors slender, lighter bones down at the bottom of the leg, right near the paws. By shedding weight at the very end of the limb, the wolf doesn't have to work as hard to swing its leg forward. It acts exactly like a pendulum. It's a literal mathematical trade-off. Reduce the mass at the bottom to maximize your stride rate and save vital energy.
Section 4. The wolf versus the domesticated dog.
So, you might be wondering, don't our domestic dogs have these exact same traits? Well, let's compare a racing greyhound to a dog bred for fighting. We humans selectively bred greyhounds for one thing: explosive 70-kilometer-per-hour sprints. But the result? They have brittle, ultra-stiff bones that actually fracture pretty frequently during races. On the flip side, fighting breeds evolved really robust, energy-absorbing bones that can take a beating, but they totally lack long-distance endurance. The wild wolf? It doesn't have the luxury of separating those traits. It has to perfectly balance both extremes to survive. The bones have to be stiff enough for a dead sprint, but tough enough not to shatter during a chaotic hunt.
The architectural differences between a wild wolf and your average domestic dog go even further when we look at the chest. A wolf has a significantly flatter chest cavity, and its ribs form a much sharper angle against the spine. Also, their shoulder blade is positioned way further forward. So what does that actually mean out in the field? It means that at the exact same speed and the exact same physical size, a wolf takes 10 to 15% fewer steps than a dog. Over a full day of tracking, that translates into unbelievable, life-saving metabolic energy savings.
Section 5. The biomechanics of wolf movement.
Let's look at how this machinery actually moves. Think of a wolf's gaits like the transmission gears in a highly tuned race car. For their lowest gear, they use what's called a loping pace, moving around 8 to 9 kilometers per hour. In this gear, they lift the right front and right hind legs at the exact same time. It is so insanely efficient they can maintain it for hours on end. When they need to close the distance, they shift into a diagonal trot, hitting 11 to 20 kilometers an hour. And when it's time for the final takedown, they launch into a high-speed sprint, reaching up to 70 kilometers an hour and making massive 5-meter horizontal jumps through the air.
So the crucial point is how they manage the energy for these massive leaps. It's not just brute muscle power. A huge amount of elastic energy is captured the very second their paws strikes the earth. The extreme stiffness in the ligaments of their wrists acts like a heavy-duty stretch spring, completely preventing the leg from collapsing under the weight. And then, just like snapping a rubber band, all that stored energy is explosively released the moment their toes push off. The wolf's leg essentially functions as a passive biological spring, which massively reduces the actual muscular effort they need to run. To sum up this whole remarkable evolutionary journey, let's look at this quote. This extreme specialization for one-way movement in the sagittal plane is paid for by the loss of mechanical plasticity. To put that into plain English, achieving absolute perfection in forward endurance completely stripped the wolf of the ability to climb trees, to manipulate things with their paws, or to aggressively grapple. They are an engine built to move in one direction, and one direction only, forward.
Which brings us to a final thought. If this extreme hyperspecialization means that even a tiny stress fracture or a joint issue is an immediate death sentence in the unforgiving wild, is the wolf's perfectly engineered running motor ultimately its greatest vulnerability? It's a massive, high-stakes price to pay for evolutionary perfection, and it's definitely something to chew on the next time you think about these amazing apex predators. Thanks for exploring with us today, and keep wondering about the incredible mechanics of the natural world.